The Martinez family Christmas was held at Uncle James's sprawling estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, where success was measured in yacht sizes and private school tuitions. I sat on the leather couch in his home office, the one place I could escape the noise, reviewing market data on my laptop while the party continued in the main house. Daniel. Uncle James's voice boomed as he entered, scotch in hand, his Brioni suit probably worth more than most people's monthly salary. Still glued to that computer? Come on, it's Christmas. Take a break from whatever you're doing. Just reviewing some positions, I said quietly, closing the laptop partway. Positions, Uncle James chuckled, settling into his desk chair. You mean your little stock portfolio? Daniel, you're 36 years old. When are you going to get a real job instead of playing with stocks in your apartment? I do okay, I said mildly. Okay, he repeated with a laugh. Son, I've been in finance for 35 years. I run a private equity firm with $2.8 billion in assets under management. I know what okay looks like in this industry, and it's not sitting in your apartment day trading on E-Trade. I don't use E-Trade, I said. Whatever platform you use, he waved dismissively. Daniel, there's a difference between playing the market and actually working in finance. You need structure, mentorship, a real career path. I could probably get you an entry-level position at my firm. Analyst work, maybe. Nothing fancy, but it would be a start. That's generous, I said, keeping my voice neutral. I'm family, Uncle James said. I look out for my people. Your father, God rest his soul, would have wanted you to have a proper career. Not this day trading hobby you've turned into a lifestyle. My father had died 7 years ago, leaving me a modest inheritance that Uncle James assumed was what I'd been living on, stretching $200,000 through careful budgeting and small market gains. The reality was significantly different, but Uncle James had never asked, so I'd never corrected his assumptions. The market's been good to me, I said simply. This bull market's been good to everyone, Uncle James corrected. But bull markets don't last forever, Daniel. When things turn, amateurs get slaughtered. You need the institutional knowledge, the risk management frameworks, the professional discipline that comes from working at a real firm. Like Martinez Capital Partners, I said, naming his private equity firm. Exactly like MCP, he said proudly. We've been managing money for high-net-worth individuals and institutions for 28 years. We have processes, Daniel. Due diligence frameworks. Risk assessment protocols. That's how you protect capital and generate consistent returns. Your returns have been good, I acknowledged. I knew exactly how good. I tracked MCP's performance closely. 12% annually over the past 5 years, Uncle James said with satisfaction. That's real wealth building. Not the gambling you're doing with your laptop and your retail trading account. My phone buzzed. A message from Sarah Chin, my chief financial officer. Need to discuss the MCP position. Call when you can. I silenced the phone. See, that's what I mean, Uncle James gestured at my phone. You're constantly checking prices, reacting to every market movement. That's not investing, Daniel. That's speculation. Real professionals set strategy and stick to it. Makes sense, I said. I worry about you, Uncle James continued, his tone shifting to something almost paternal. You live in that modest apartment in Stamford. You drive a 7-year-old Accord. You don't seem to have a retirement plan or health insurance through an employer. Daniel, you're in your mid-30s. You should be building security, not gambling on stock picks. I appreciate your concern, I said. It's more than concern, it's reality, he said. Look, I'll be honest with you. The family talks. Your cousin Eduardo is making $400,000 a year at Goldman Sachs. Your cousin Maria runs a hedge fund with $600 million aim. And you're doing whatever it is you're doing. It's embarrassing, Daniel. Embarrassing for whom? I asked quietly. For the family, he said as if this were obvious. The Martinez name means something in finance. We're known for our success, our professionalism. And then there's you, the day trader nephew who lives like a college student. I nodded, returning my attention to my laptop. Are you even listening? Uncle James asked, irritation creeping into his voice. I'm listening, I assured him. You think I should get a real job? Leave investing to professionals like yourself. Stop playing with stocks. Exactly, he said, pleased that I'd understood. It's for your own good, Daniel. You can't day trade forever. Eventually you'll run out of money or the market will turn against you. Then what? Then I'll figure something out, I said. That's not a plan, Uncle James said. That's hope. Hope isn't a strategy. My phone buzzed again. Sarah, more insistent this time. Daniel, it's urgent. About MCP. I need to take this, I said, standing. Work call. Work, Uncle James snorted. Fine. But think about what I said. The offer stands. I'll get you an interview at MCP. Entry level, but it's a foot in the door. Better than whatever you're doing now. I stepped out onto the terrace, closing the door behind me, and called Sarah. What's happening? I asked. Martinez Capital Partners just published their year-end letter to investors, Sarah said. James is bragging about their 12% returns and their sophisticated risk management. He's also mentioned that they're planning a major expansion into Asian markets. I saw the letter, I said. I'd received it 2 weeks ago. Anonymously, like all communications from MCP to their largest investor. Daniel, their risk metrics are deteriorating, Sarah said. The Asian expansion is overleveraged. They're taking on debt to fund acquisitions in markets they don't understand. Their due diligence is sloppy. I've reviewed the documentation. They're going to get burned. How bad? I asked. Potentially catastrophic, Sarah said. If the Asian market's correct, which they're showing signs of doing, MCP could lose 40 to 50% of their capital. James is betting everything on continued growth in unstable markets. I was quiet for a moment, watching the Christmas lights twinkling across Uncle James's manicured lawn. Pull out, I said finally. All of it? Sarah asked. Daniel, that's $287 million. You're their largest investor by far. If you pull out, it could trigger a crisis. They're mismanaging risk, I said. That's exactly why we need to pull out. Execute it after the holidays. Give them until January 2nd to process the redemption request. This is going to hurt James personally, Sarah said quietly. Not just professionally. The reputation damage alone. Should have managed risk better, I said. This isn't personal, Sarah. This is protecting our capital. Understood, she said. I'll draft the redemption notice. I ended the call and returned to the office. Uncle James was pouring another scotch. Everything okay? He asked. That work call seemed serious. Just portfolio management, I said. See, you call it portfolio management, but it's not the same as what we do at MCP, Uncle James said, back to his earlier theme. We manage billions, Daniel. We have entire teams dedicated to risk analysis, market research, due diligence. What you're doing on your laptop is amateur hour by comparison. Probably, I agreed mildly. Definitely, he corrected. Look, I don't mean to be harsh, but someone needs to tell you the truth. This fantasy that you're some kind of investor. It needs to end. Get a real job. Build a real career. Stop pretending you're in the same business as actual professionals. Noted, I said. The party continued. I made small talk with relatives who alternated between pity and condescension. Poor Daniel, still playing with stocks, still living modestly, still not understanding that real success required a corporate title and an expense account. My cousin Eduardo cornered me near the dessert table. Uncle James says you're still doing the day trading thing. Man, when are you going to grow up and get a real job? Maybe soon, I said. You should let me give you some tips, Eduardo offered. Working at Goldman, I see how real professionals operate. You can't just pick stocks based on feeling or tips from Reddit. You need institutional knowledge. Like you have at Goldman, I said. Exactly, Eduardo said, missing my tone entirely. We have resources you can't even imagine. Research teams, AI algorithms, direct access to companies. That's how you make real money, not whatever you're doing. How much did Goldman pay you last year? I asked. $400,000, Eduardo said proudly. Plus bonus. Plus benefits. That's what real success looks like, Daniel. Congratulations, I said sincerely. Maybe I could get you an interview, Eduardo offered. Not for anything senior, obviously. But we're always looking for junior analysts. Pays about $150,000 to start. You'd have to work your way up, but it's better than day trading. I'll think about it, I said. January 2nd arrived cold and gray. I was in my modest apartment in Stamford, Actually, a 3,000 square foot penthouse I owned outright in a building I'd invested in 5 years ago, when Sarah called. The redemption notice went out this morning, she said. MCP has 30 days to process the withdrawal of $287 million. How did they react? I asked. James called immediately, Sarah said. He's panicking. He wants to know who the anonymous investor is, wants to negotiate, wants to understand why we're pulling out. His CFO is apparently in crisis mode. And you told them? That the investor wishes to remain anonymous and the decision is final, Sarah confirmed. Daniel, $287 million is 72% of MCP's total assets under management. This is going to cripple them. They crippled themselves with poor risk management, I said. We're just protecting our capital. James is going to find out it's you eventually, Sarah warned. When he sees the wire transfer, when he tracks the beneficial ownership, he'll figure it out. I know, I said. I'm ready for that conversation. Over the next week my phone started ringing. Uncle James repeatedly. I let most calls go to voicemail, but his messages grew increasingly desperate. Daniel, I need your help. We're having a crisis at the firm. I know you're not in finance professionally, but I need someone I can trust. Please call me back. Daniel, this is serious. Someone is pulling $287 million from our fund. It's going to destroy us. I need family right now. Please. Daniel, where the hell are you? I've been calling for days. We're in trouble. Real trouble. I need to talk to you. On January 9th I finally answered. Daniel. Uncle James sounded ragged. Thank God. I've been trying to reach you for a week. I saw your messages, I said. What's going on? We're being destroyed, Uncle James said bluntly. Our largest investor, someone we've never even met who invests through layers of shell companies, is pulling out. $287 million, Daniel. That's 72% of our AUM. When word gets out, the other investors will panic and redeem too. We're finished. That's terrible, I said. What happened? I don't know. Uncle James's voice cracked. We've had 12% returns for 5 years. Our performance has been excellent. But this investor just suddenly decided to pull out. No explanation, no warning, nothing. Have you asked them why? I suggested. They won't talk to us, Uncle James said. They're completely anonymous. Work through lawyers and shell companies. We have no idea who they are or why they're doing this. Maybe they disagree with your investment strategy, I said quietly. How could they disagree? We've been making money for 5 years. Uncle James protested. Unless, Daniel, you're smart with this stuff. You follow the markets. Do you see something we're missing? Your Asian expansion is over-leveraged, I said simply. You're taking on too much debt to fund acquisitions in unstable markets. Your risk management metrics are deteriorating. If those markets correct, you'll lose 40 to 50% of your remaining capital. There was a long silence. How do you know about our Asian expansion? Uncle James asked slowly. That's confidential information. We only share that with investors. You share it with all investors, I said, including anonymous ones who invest through shell companies. Another silence, longer this time. Daniel, Uncle James said carefully, what are you saying? I'm saying I've been your largest investor for 5 years, I said calmly. The $287 million being withdrawn. That's mine. Well, technically it's held through Clearwater Investment Holdings, which is owned by Summit Capital Trust, which is owned by Meridian Asset Group, which I own. But yes, it's my money. That's impossible, Uncle James said, but his voice lacked conviction. You're a day trader. You live in a modest apartment. You drive an Accord. I live in a penthouse I own outright, I corrected. I drive an Accord because it's reliable and I don't need a flashy car. And I'm not a day trader, Uncle James. I'm a private investor managing a portfolio of approximately $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion, he repeated faintly. Dad left me $200,000 7 years ago, I explained. I turned it into $8 million in 18 months through some concentrated bets that paid off. I've been compounding that capital ever since. Currently, I manage money for myself and about 30 other ultra-high net worth individuals who appreciate discretion. But you work from home. You don't have an office. I have a team of 12 people, I said. CFO, analysts, legal counsel, compliance officers. They work remotely. We don't need a fancy office to analyze investments and manage risk. The $287 million you invested in my firm, Uncle James said slowly. That was 5 years ago. You were 31 years old with what, maybe $20 million to invest. $35 million at the time, I corrected. MCP was attractive because your returns were solid and your risk management looked good. I invested $35 million initially, and it grew to $287 million over 5 years. 12% annually compounds nicely. Why didn't you tell me? Uncle James asked, and he sounded genuinely hurt. You never asked, I said simply. You assumed I was a day trader playing with Dad's inheritance. You mocked my work, dismissed my career, told me to get a real job. You measured my success by visible markers, office, title, expense account, and concluded I was a failure. But we could have worked together. As partners. No, I said firmly. You wanted to give me an entry-level analyst position. You wanted me to learn from you to understand how real professionals operate. You weren't interested in partnership. You were interested in charity. Daniel. I'm withdrawing my capital because your risk management has deteriorated, I continued. The Asian expansion is reckless. You're over-leveraged. You're chasing returns without properly assessing downside risk. That's not how I invest, and I won't leave $287 million in a fund that's mismanaging risk. We can fix it, Uncle James said desperately. If you give us time. I gave you 5 years, I said. You had excellent risk management when I invested. Then you started chasing higher returns, taking bigger risks, convincing yourself that the bull market would last forever. I warned you, through my representatives, about the Asian exposure 6 months ago. You ignored the feedback. That was you, the anonymous investor who questioned our Asia strategy. That was me, I confirmed. You dismissed the concerns as coming from someone who didn't understand the opportunity. Your exact words in the letter you sent to investors in July. Uncle James was silent. The redemption stands, I said. Transfer the $287 million by January 31st. After that, what you do with MCP is your business. But I won't be involved anymore. This will destroy the firm, Uncle James said quietly. When the other investors hear that our largest backer pulled out, they'll panic. We'll have a run. We'll have to liquidate everything. You'll survive, I said. You'll be smaller, humbler, hopefully more careful about risk. But you'll survive. The family is going to hear about this, Uncle James said, and there was an edge of anger now. They're going to know you destroyed my firm. I didn't destroy your firm, I corrected. Your poor risk management did. I'm just protecting my capital. That's what real investors do, Uncle James. We manage risk first, chase returns second. I ended the call. The Martinez family WhatsApp group exploded within hours. Uncle James had apparently told everyone his version of events, which painted me as the villain who'd secretly invested in his firm and then betrayed him by withdrawing at the worst possible time. My cousin Eduardo called. Daniel, what the hell? You destroyed Uncle James's firm. I withdrew my investment, I said. There's a difference. You were his largest investor and you never told him it was you. That's deceptive. I was an anonymous investor, I corrected. Like many institutional investors prefer to be. James never asked who his backers were. He just took the money and assumed they'd stay forever. Your family, Eduardo protested. You owe him loyalty. I'm an investor, I said. I owe my capital protection. When James started taking excessive risks, I pulled out. That's not betrayal, that's fiduciary responsibility. Fiduciary responsibility, Eduardo repeated mockingly. You sound like you actually think you're a real investor. I manage $1.2 billion, I said simply. What would you call that? Silence. You're lying, Eduardo finally said. You can't possibly manage that much. You work from home. You don't even have an office. Call Sarah Chin at Clearwater Investment Holdings, I suggested, giving him the number. She's my CFO. She can verify whatever you want to know. This is insane, Eduardo said and hung up. My cousin Maria called next. She was smarter, less emotional. Daniel, I'm looking at the Delaware Corporation filings. Clearwater Investment Holdings, Summit Capital Trust, Meridian Asset Group. They all trace back to you. This is real. It's real, I confirmed. How much are you actually managing? She asked. $1.2 billion in total portfolio value, I said. About 30 clients, all ultra-high net worth individuals who value discretion. And you've been doing this from your apartment in Stamford? Technology makes physical offices unnecessary, I said. My team works remotely. We have video conferences, shared secure databases, everything we need. The work matters, not the office. Jesus, Daniel, Maria said softly. I run a $600 million fund and I thought I was doing well. You've got double my aim and none of us knew. That was intentional, I said. I prefer operating quietly. Why? Why hide this from family? Because the family was more interested in judging me than understanding me, I said. Uncle James spent 5 years telling me to get a real job while I was literally his largest investor. Eduardo mocked my day trading while I was managing more money than Goldman paid him. You all measured my success by visible markers and concluded I was a failure. We were wrong, Maria said quietly. Yes, I agreed. What happens now? She asked. With Uncle James's firm? That's up to him, I said. If he's smart, he'll deleverage, reduce his risk exposure, rebuild slowly with better discipline. If he's not, he'll keep chasing returns and lose everything. You could help him, Maria suggested. I tried, I said. 6 months ago, through my representatives, I questioned his Asian expansion. He dismissed the concerns. He wanted the higher returns more than he wanted prudent risk management. That's not someone I can work with. Cold, Maria observed. Professional, I corrected. I manage other people's money, Maria. I have a fiduciary duty to protect that capital. When a fund manager starts taking excessive risks, I pull out. That's not cold, that's responsible. Fair enough, she said. For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. Uncle James got cocky. He needed a reality check. He's getting one, I said. The family drama continued for weeks. Half the relatives sided with Uncle James. Betrayal, disloyalty, how could Daniel destroy family? The other half started looking at me with new eyes, particularly when they realized the scope of what I'd actually built. Uncle James himself didn't call again until February 15th. The redemption is processed, he said without preamble. The $287 million is being wired to Clearwater Investment Holdings today. Thank you, I said. For what it's worth, you were right, Uncle James said quietly. The Asian markets corrected last week. If we kept your money invested in our expansion strategy, we'd have lost 40% of it. Maybe 50%. You called it perfectly. I'm sorry it happened, I said and meant it. Are you? Uncle James asked. You seem pretty calm for someone who just destroyed his uncle's firm. I didn't destroy your firm, I said again. I withdrew my capital based on risk assessment. Your firm will survive, smaller but wiser. You still have $112 million in AUM from other investors who believe in you. That's enough to rebuild. If I can keep them from redeeming, Uncle James said. Then show them you've learned, I suggested. Deleverage. Improve your risk management. Prove that this was a learning experience, not a character flaw. Investors value wisdom gained from mistakes. Is that what you tell your clients? Uncle James asked. When you make mistakes? I tell them the truth, I said. About what went wrong, why it went wrong, and how I'm fixing it. Transparency builds trust. Defensiveness destroys it. Uncle James was quiet for a moment. You really do know what you're doing, don't you? This isn't luck or a bull market. You actually understand this business. I've spent 15 years learning it, I said. Not in offices or boardrooms but in markets. Learning from mistakes, refining strategies, building discipline. The same way you built MCP 28 years ago, before you got complacent. Complacent, he repeated. That's what I've been. You're right. I got confident, started chasing returns, stopped questioning my assumptions. The anonymous investor feedback, your feedback, I should have listened. Yes, I agreed. You should have. Can I ask you something? Uncle James said. If I fix this, if I rebuild MCP with better risk management, better discipline, would you consider reinvesting? Maybe, I said. In 2 or 3 years, if your track record shows consistent risk management and you stop chasing outsized returns. But I'll always remain anonymous, Uncle James. That's non-negotiable. Why? He asked. Why hide when you're this successful? Because success isn't about recognition, I said. It's about doing the work well. I don't need people to know I manage $1.2 billion. I need to manage it responsibly. The moment I start caring more about reputation than results, I'll start making mistakes. Like I did, Uncle James said. Like you did, I agreed. Daniel. Uncle James said. I'm sorry. For how I treated you. For assuming you were just day trading. For offering you an entry-level analyst position like I was doing you a favor. You've been more successful than I have and I was too blind to see it. Thank you, I said quietly. For what? For finally asking instead of assuming, I said. That's all I ever wanted, for someone to actually ask what I do instead of deciding they already knew. The Martinez family Easter gathering was subdued compared to Christmas. Uncle James's firm had stabilized, he'd deleveraged, refocused on core competencies, and retained about $95 million in AUM from investors who believed in his recovery plan. Eduardo was noticeably quieter around me. Maria sought me out for investment advice. The family dynamic had shifted. I was no longer the day trading failure, but I wasn't entirely comfortable with the new perception either. People keep asking me about investments, I told Maria during dinner. Like I'm suddenly a guru because they found out I manage money. You do manage a lot of money, Maria pointed out. That doesn't make me a guru, I said. It makes me someone who's been consistent and disciplined for 15 years. Most people don't want to do the work. They want the shortcut, the secret formula, the insider tip. What do you tell them? She asked. That there are no shortcuts, I said. That successful investing is boring. It's research, risk management, patience, discipline. It's saying no to exciting opportunities that don't meet your criteria. It's pulling out of investments that start taking excessive risks, even when everyone else thinks you're crazy. Like you did with Uncle James, Maria said. Like I did with Uncle James, I confirmed. He's different now, Maria observed. Humbler. More careful. Good, I said. Maybe this will make him a better investor. It definitely made him respect you more, Maria said. I didn't do it for respect, I said. I did it to protect capital. The respect is a side effect. Take the win, Daniel, Maria smiled. You proved everyone wrong. Enjoy it a little. I proved that assumptions are dangerous, I said. That's not really a win. It's just a lesson everyone should have already known. My phone buzzed. Sarachin with the monthly portfolio report. Returns were up 14% for the year so far. Client satisfaction scores were at 96%. Assets under management had grown to $1.27 billion as existing clients increased their allocations. Work? Maria asked. Always, I said. Do you ever take a break? She asked. Ever just not work? This is what I love, I said simply. Analyzing markets, managing risk, growing capital. Why would I take a break from something I love? Because that's what normal people do, she said. I'm not normal people, I said. I'm someone who found work that matters to me and built a life around it. The modest apartment, the old Accord, the low profile, that's all intentional. It keeps me focused on what actually matters. Which is? The work, I said. Always the work. The returns, the risk management, the capital protection. That's what I get paid to do. That's what I'm good at. Everything else is just noise. Uncle James approached us, looking hesitant. Daniel, can we talk? Of course, I said. Maria excused herself, leaving us alone on the terrace. I've been thinking, Uncle James said, about what you said. About rebuilding MCP with better discipline. I wanted to run something by you. Hey, I said. What if we partnered? He asked. Not you investing in MCP, but actually working together. You bring your analytical skills, your risk management expertise. I bring the institutional relationships, the operational infrastructure. We could build something really special. I looked at him carefully. You want me to work for you? With me, he corrected. As partners. Equal partners. I don't need a partner, I said gently. I have a team, a process, a structure that works. What would partnership with MCP give me that I don't already have? Uncle James deflated slightly. Nothing, I suppose. I just thought. I don't know what I thought. That maybe we could build something together. We can, I said. Just not as partners. Fix your firm. Prove you've learned. Show consistent risk management over 2 to 3 years. Then I'll consider reinvesting. That's how we build something together. Through proven performance, not partnership promises. Always the professional, Uncle James said, but he smiled. No special treatment just because we're family. Especially because we're family, I corrected. If I partnered with you and it failed, it would destroy our relationship. This way we keep business and family separate. I invest if your performance merits it. I withdraw if your risk management deteriorates. Clean, professional, no hurt feelings. No hurt feelings? Uncle James raised an eyebrow. Daniel, I was devastated when you pulled out. You were devastated that your risk management failed, I corrected. Not that I pulled out. The pullout was a symptom, not the cause. Subtle distinction, he observed. Important distinction, I said. We stood in silence for a moment, watching the sun set over the Connecticut countryside. Your father would be proud, Uncle James said finally. Of what you've built. Of who you've become. Thank you, I said quietly. He always said you had a mind for numbers, Uncle James continued. Said you saw patterns other people missed. I didn't believe him. I thought he was just being a proud father. Turns out he was right. He usually was, I said. I wish I'd asked, Uncle James said. Instead of assuming. I wish I'd actually learned what you were doing instead of dismissing it as day trading. You're asking now, I said. That matters. Better late than never? Better late than never, I agreed. 2 years later, Uncle James's firm had stabilized at $127 million in AUM. Smaller than before but profitable and disciplined. His risk management scores had improved dramatically. His returns were steady, not spectacular but consistent. I reinvested $50 million through the same anonymous structure. When Uncle James called to thank the anonymous investor for their renewed confidence, I listened through the speakerphone while Sarah handled the call. We won't let you down, Uncle James promised. We've learned from our mistakes. We're better managers now. We believe you are, Sarah said professionally. That's why we're reinvesting. But know that we're watching closely. If risk management deteriorates again, we'll exit just as quickly. Understood, Uncle James said. And please thank your principal for the opportunity. For believing in us again. I will, Sarah promised. After she ended the call, she looked at me. He still doesn't know it's you, does he? No, I said. And he doesn't need to. The investment speaks for itself. You're a strange man, Daniel Martinez, Sarah said. Most people would want credit for giving their uncle a second chance. Most people measure success in recognition, I said. I measure it in returns and risk management. Uncle James has earned reinvestment through improved performance. That's all that matters. The family still talks about you, Sarah said. About how you secretly built this massive portfolio while everyone thought you were day trading. Let them talk, I said. As long as they're talking, they're not asking me for investment advice or money. Cold, Sarah observed. Efficient, I corrected. I have work to do. Let's review the quarterly report. And that ultimately was the point. Not the family drama. Not the vindication. Not the recognition. Just the work. The research, the analysis, the risk management, the patient discipline of growing capital responsibly. Uncle James had finally learned to respect it. The family had finally learned to see it. But I'd known all along what mattered. And it wasn't their approval. It was the work itself. Always had been. Always would be. The rest was just noise. And I'd long ago learned to tune out the noise.